War of the Spark, the final set in Magic the Gathering's unofficial block of the same name, came out on May 3rd, 2019. The 264 card set saw Mark Rosewater taking the lead on vision design, and Dave Humphries heading up set design. The set finished off the collectible card game's Nicol Bolas arc as the story reaches its climax. The story itself was told in 3 acts across the set, with the first act covering Bolas' initial invasion, the second act covering Ravnica's response, and the third finishing things up. And while yes, War of the Spark marks 3 consecutive sets on the plane, don't you dare call it a block.
What happened was, we kept changing how blocks worked. For the longest time, blocks were 3 sets. We then moved to a 2-set world, and then eventually moved to a world where blocks really didn't exist at all. When we first came up with it, we knew we wanted War of the Spark to take place on Ravnica. It was the big final event set. We wanted there to be jeopardy, and putting it on one of those popular planes added a lot to that. So the idea that the ending fight was on Ravnica was built into the story really early on. Our worry was if we went to Ravnica but didn't deliver on the guild goodness of Ravnica, it would be a problem. So we then said, okay, what we'll do first is we'll go to Ravnica, we'll give you all the guild goodness, and then we'll do War of the Spark. So that way, even though it's on Ravnica, you don't feel like you missed out on Ravnica.
Wizards of the Coast took the story of War of the Spark rather seriously, and published 3 novels for the set. Children of the Nameless, by New York Times bestselling author Brandon Sanderson, War of the Spark Ravnica, by Greg Weisman, and War of the Spark Forsaken, also by Weisman. That final book, War of the Spark Forsaken, was met with harsh criticism due to what readers considered to be poor writing, and an overall butchering of the game's characters, including seemingly reversing many of the developments characters such as Jace, Chandra, Nissa, and Vraska had overgone over the past few years, as well as unceremoniously killing off some of the game's named characters off-screen. Wizards of the Coast later put out a statement acknowledging the book's poor reception, and that they'll be addressing possible character retcons, such as the relationship between Chandra and Nissa, in future stories. Weisman also released a public apology, saying the creative and editorial process with Wizards as well as publisher Del Rey was to blame. Beyond the novels, Wizards of the Coast also released a series of web-exclusive short stories, also written by Weisman, as well as an art book and a Japanese-language manga. As for how the story goes, for the purpose of this video, we will set the stage, then focus on how things are, more or less, told through the cards themselves. With Nicol Bolas looking down upon Ravnica, and the Izzet Guild's interplanar beacon lit, planeswalkers from across the multiverse find themselves irresistibly drawn to the plane. And not just the Gatewatch and their allies, those sworn to protect the multiverse from threats such as Bolas, but others completely unrelated to the Guild Pact and their cause. If you can't save yourself, you fight to give someone else a chance, a Johnny Goldmane tells many of the others as the Ravnican resistance builds. Looking up and seeing a familiar symbol, much like the one he had seen during his time on Ixalan, Jace surmises that they are all walking into Bolas' trap. He felt no joy in being right. Meanwhile, on behalf of Bolas, Tezzeret uses the planar bridge device he had stolen while on Kaladesh previously, and uses it to form a link between Bolas' home base of Amonkhet and Ravnica. On Ravnica, the planar bridge opened over a chamber of the Guild Pact, reducing the symbol of Ravnica's endurance to rubble. Ravnica is at war, and it's almost like the heart of Ravnica disappeared before anyone could strike a blow in its defense. Through the plane-linking bridge marched Bolas' Dreadhorde army, comprised of zombies coated in the nearly indestructible metal Lazatep. Death greeted the world with a roar of desert air as Bolas' army began to invade the city in service to their god Pharaoh. Leading the army is Bolas' Dreadhorde general, the planeswalker Liliana, who is working under contractual servitude to the dragon. In a relentless advance, the army approaches in formation, every movement efficient and sure. They halt, listen, and then press on in silent unison. Ravnica's citizens can only run and hide from the widespread brutality overtaking their home, one that looks less and less like the Ravnica they know, from a combination of destruction and monuments being phased into the land by the Dragonic invader, including his citadel, and a statue of himself complete with a dictator's infuriating smirk, which is an affront to everything Ravnica stood for.
All I ask is complete obedience.
he bellows to the plane-spanning city. Dissent, however, is exactly what the Gatewatch and the other planeswalkers arriving on scene at the beacon's beckoning plan on providing to Bolas. Some were fighting in defense of the citizens of Ravnica. Others were fighting for a way out. As for the Amonkhet native, Samut, the war was intensely personal. Every hour she faced enemies she once loved as friends, and horrors she once revered as gods. Meanwhile, 2 other planeswalkers who couldn't resist the call of the beacon also arrived on Ravnica, Nahiri and Sorin. Unlike the rest of the plane, neither are interested in taking part of either side of the war, as they are already deeply involved in their own personal conflict. Sorin, who had finally been freed from his prison of stone back at his home on Innistrad, confronts the Lithomancer whom he had once considered a friend and ally.
I see you're out of the wall,
Nahiri says to Sorin as the two resume their feud. The ancient planeswalkers battle across Ravnica, their blows cutting as deep as their grudge. Not even a threat to the entire multiverse could persuade them to set aside their feud, as they remained locked in single combat despite the chaos erupting all around them. It's not just the planeswalkers who are embroiled in this war, though. Ravnicans, too, find themselves fighting for their home, with members from every guild doing their part, even if it means fighting alongside those you normally wouldn't, if it means turning the tide of battle. This resistance, though, proves little more than an inconvenience for the nearly impervious Dreadhorde army, as some of the invading forces make their way into the home territory of the Selesnya Conclave and attack the city tree of Vitu-Ghazi itself. This incursion is something that Nissa, the elf druid planeswalker from Zendikar, takes personal offense to. The Eternal armies advance on Vitu-Ghazi and, at Nissa's command, Vitu-Ghazi began to advance on them. Now animated, the city tree crushed the Eternal zombies attacking it and, shortly thereafter, advanced upon Nicol Bolas' statue, toppling it. Bolas cared little when his statue fell, thinking it a useful distraction. However, he underestimated the surge of resolve it would give his opponents. As the tide of battle seemed to turn in the Ravnicans' favor, Bolas brings out the big guns. Amonkhet's God Eternals enter the fray, and easily dispatch the animated Vitu-Ghazi. Not wanting the forces of Ravnica to waver, Gideon calls for a pledge of unity.
No one hero will save this day. Today, we must all be heroes.
Watching everything play out from afar as he often does, Nicol Bolas thinks it's time to act. He casts his Elder spell, which allows his Dreadhorde army of Eternals the power to extract the essence of Planeswalkers. Their very first victim is Domri-Rad, the anarchist Planeswalker head of Ravnica's Gruul clans. As the Eternal's cold fingers tightened around his throat, Domri realized what kind of master he had rushed to serve. With the harvest of Domri's spark, the Elder spell began to fuel Bolas' ascension to godhood. Other Planeswalkers were at risk of falling to the same fate, as they were all trapped on Ravnica thanks to Bolas' use of the Immortal Sun device, which Tezzeret had stolen for him from Ixalan. But while the Sun disallowed Planeswalkers from escaping via magical means, it did not disallow anyone from traversing the planes using the Planar Bridge device. Jace, noticing this, comes up with a plan. First, a handful of Planeswalkers will need to slip past the invading army and across the Planar Bridge in Amonkhet to confront whomever is on the other side and, hopefully, find a way to close the portal. Samut, Karn, Dak Faden, and Ob Nixilis all agree to go through the bridge. While on the other side, Ob Nixilis took the opportunity to flee now that he's beyond the reach of the Immortal Sun. The other three confronted Tezzeret and, while Dak distracted him, Samut and Karn destroyed the bridge control mechanism implanted within the cyborg Planeswalker's chest, collapsing the portal in the process. Considering his role in Bolas' scheme now over, Tezzeret planeswalks away, but not before telling them he hopes they can kill Bolas, so that he can finally be freed of his servitude to the dragon. The Planeswalkers were then paid a visit by Hazoret, Amonkhet's last surviving deity, along with the Planeswalker Sarkhan Vol. At Vol's request, Hazoret lent them her spear to aid in their fight against Bolas. Dak considered leaving just as Tezzeret and Ob Nixilis had previously, but Hazoret convinced them to stay and help, and he, along with Karn and Samut, planeswalked back to Ravnica to continue to assist the war effort. While Dak and crew were handling the planar bridge, the second part of Jace's plan involved deactivating the Immortal Sun. That would mean taking out the planeswalker operating it, the Azorius head, and Nicol Bolas ally, Dovin Baan. The ever overconfident Baan, though, can sometimes be his own worst enemy. Chandra, with assistance from the shape-shifting head of House Dimir, blind the planeswalker. With Baan now no longer concentrating on keeping the sun active, the device powers down, and Dovin planeswalks away to lick his wounds. As for the next part of the plan, Jace believes they need to find some way of getting through to Liliana, whom is commanding the entire invading army as their general, though Bolas will not make that part easy, especially as the Dreadhorde army takes the life and essence of one of their allies, Dak Faden, newly returned from closing the portal. Meanwhile, as Jace's multifaceted plan is being put into action, a plan of a different sort is occurring elsewhere. 3 other planeswalkers, Vraska, Kaya, and Ral, meet with their own goal in mind, resurrecting Niv-Mizzet, the former head of the Izzet Guild who had fallen at the talons of Nicol Bolas almost as soon as the Dragonic Planeswalker had arrived. While Niv-Mizzet had perfected a plan, he had no control over the mortal minds who had agreed to implement it. Gathering bonds from each of Ravnica's 10 guilds, the Planeswalker trio went to work. They gathered Niv's charred bones, along with a brass model of Niv-Mizzet's head that they called the Firemind Vessel. Those items together, they channeled the mana from all of Ravnica's ley lines into it at the same time, in a ritual led by Planeswalker Nisravain. Above the Firemind Vessel opened a portal clear as water and wispy as smoke. It merged and descended as if being sucked in by the item. Niv's charred bones began to glow. One of the invaders, a zombified version of Kefnet, one of the gods in the plane of Amonkhet, noticed the commotion and attacked, but the planeswalker Teo Verada shielded the ritual from harm and, once enough mana had been absorbed by the vessel, the bones went ablaze. The blaze began to take shape, the shape of a dragon. Niv-Mizzet was reborn, but not entirely as he was. With scales of gold and a symbol of a decadon seared onto his chest, his eyes aglow, he incinerated Kefnet, then collapsed, the strain of killing a god almost too much for his newly reborn self. Shortly thereafter, once he rested a bit, Niv-Mizzet re-entered the fray in defense of the plane he called home. Back with Jace and his plans, while the first 2 parts went quite well overall, they had a pivot on the third plan. Plan B was now to get the impervious soldier, Gideon, equipped with the life force-stealing Black Blade that they had previously stolen from the Cabal on Dominaria, as close to Nicol Bolas as possible, hoping the blade's magic could handle the rest.
Would you give your life to save this world?
He murmured to the Pegasus he was to mount and ride in the battle. The Pegasus snorted and spread its mighty wings. Airborne and on their way to Bolas, Gideon's mount is fatally struck by an arrow from the god Eternal Oketra. As they tumble down towards the ground, the demon lord Vorthos catches the Blackblade wielding warrior and continues him toward the Dragonic Planeswalker.
No one will ever ride me again, Gideon. Expect no further favors,
exclaims the demon. Once close enough, Gideon dismounts from Vorthos and lunges himself towards Bolas. Ravnica held its breath as the hero of the Resistance, their last hope, flew through the sky, his dark sword ready to strike a god. Gideon strikes true, but rather than stabbing through the dragon god, the Blackblade shatters upon impact.
The hero with a magic sword slays the dragon, not this time,
gloats Bolas. Gideon falls to the ground below the Dragonic Planeswalker and finds himself battling against more and more Eternals as they try to snuff him out and harvest his spark for their dragon god. The Dreadhorde General, Liliana, witnesses her friend, one of her very few friends, facing certain demise at her hands. It's something she could not bear to see. Deciding that death is better than life as Bolas' eternal slave, she turns on her master and sends the army of Eternals God Eternals included, against him. The price of betrayal came quickly for the Necromancer. The moment Liliana defied Nicol Bolas, her contract was broken, and her life forfeit. But she was free to choose her fate, and she decided it was worth the price. That's when she felt a hand upon her shoulder. It was Gideon's. The battered and war-torn soldier used what strength he had left to protect his friend, transferring his invulnerability to her. To Liliana's surprise, the cost of betraying Bolas did not fall on her. Gideon, forever her friend, was there to help one final time. There was no time to mourn. The Eternals had closed in on Bolas. Liliana whispered to whatever consciousness the former Amonkhet gods Oketra and Bantu had left.
You are the gods. He is your usurper. You know what to do.
As Bolas was locked in combat against Oketra and Bantu, a newly rejuvenated Niv-Mizzet flies towards the dragon god. Armed with the Spear of Hazaret, the Firemind runs the Dragonic Planeswalker through from behind. Bolas blasts Niv away, but the distraction allowed for an opening for Bantu to bite him and drain his essence away, thanks to the blessing of the Elder Spell. Bolas now unconscious and a weakened shell of his former self, the gathered Planeswalkers go in for the final attack. From the Meditation Realm, Ugin telepathically reaches out to Jace and convinces him that he needs Bolas alive in the event that Bolas's arrogance and love of contingency plans means that the dragon has a way to yet again cheat death. Jace conjures up an illusion of the former Draconic Planeswalker perishing where he lay, disintegrating into a pile of ash. The charade was all Ugin needed to appear on Ravnica unnoticed and retrieve his brother, the Spirit Dragon, bringing the broken Bolas back to the Meditation Realm. The invasion now over, a plane-wide celebration erupts across Ravnica. Even in this joyous moment though, Liliana, feeling unredeemed and unworthy due to her role in it all, planeswalks away. Kaya, seeking to atone for past mistakes, offers to join the Gatewatch.
So everyone gets what they truly deserve. I will keep watch.
In the afterlife, the spirit of the fallen hero, Gideon, returns to his home plane of Theros. There, he is reunited with fallen friends and comrades from his days as a soldier. Once again referred to by his original name, Kythian. Kythian had known war every day of his life. Now, he finally knows peace. And that does it not just for the story of War the Spark, but the entire multi-set, multi-year Bolas story arc. As for what comes next, that's another video. Besides, there's still quite a bit to say about War the Spark as a Magic the Gathering set. The 81st expansion for the collectible card game, War of the Spark is what Magic head designer Mark Rosewater calls a event set, as it's built around an event rather than the plane itself.
It's fun to sort of build around something other than just environment, that we really built around a story in a big way. And that was a lot of fun, something a little bit different.
The set was sold in regular booster packs, single-colored theme boosters, a bundle containing 10 booster packs along with other goodies, and 2 pre-constructed Planeswalker decks, this time featuring the cards Gideon, the Oathsworn, and Jace, Arcane Strategist, as the face cards. While the set's booster packs are par for the course packs for its time, there was one twist to them. You were guaranteed to open at least one Planeswalker card in each pack. After all, the set features 36 Planeswalker cards, the most ever printed in a single set, across 3 different rarities: Mythic Rare, Rare, and, for the first time ever, Uncommon.
So Doug Beyer, who oversees a lot of the creative stuff and who came up with the main story for the Bolas arc, I remember he came and he pitched to me, and he goes, okay, and it ends in this giant Planeswalker war, where almost every Planeswalker we know is fighting the zombie Eternal army that Bolas has put together, and like, Doug, I get like 3 Planeswalkers, you know. And so one of the things we spent a lot of time on in working on War of the Spark, early on, I knew it was a Planeswalker war, and we spent a lot of time trying to make war work. We had this mechanical skirmish where you were sort of fighting over, and then eventually I realized that we were emphasizing the wrong thing. It wasn't, a Planeswalker war, it was Planeswalker war. And we started focusing on the Planeswalkers, and the answer is, okay, let's say I wanted to have as many Planeswalkers as I could, what do I need to do that? Okay, that meant to have uncommon Planeswalkers. We came up with some hybrid Planeswalkers, then we started building the set around the Planeswalkers. And so, yes, Planeswalkers then became a de facto main core of what the set was.
In order to make Planeswalker cards work at scale, Wizards had to simplify what a Planeswalker card is.
I've been saving the idea of the static abilities for Planeswalkers. We obviously came up with them very early because it's not hard to think of it. But I'm like, look, we have to slow roll our Planeswalkers. There's only, Planeswalker design space is a lot narrower than other card types. So I'm like, okay, let's hold back. Let's really mine all the space we have. And then once we had a major sort of focus on Planeswalkers, I'm like, okay, finally this is the place we're going to use that. And so having static abilities allowed us to make some uncommon Planeswalkers that would do something. And they could, like we did for the very first time, Planeswalkers that just counted down, meaning, okay, I just get so many uses of the Planeswalkers that I'm using the loyalty as a countdown method more so than a more complex up and down system. It just was sort of, okay, I need to have a lot of Planeswalkers. What do I need to do that? Let's do those things. And then we just found different ways to use different tools. We also added hybrid to Planeswalkers because that was something so more people had access to more Planeswalkers. And it was just a matter of simplifying what's the essence of a Planeswalker and could we make Planeswalkers that weren't so complex.
Also, each Planeswalker card has a Japanese anime or manga art variant available that can be pulled. While these alternate art cards are only available in Japanese language booster packs, Wizards of the Coast made sure these boosters were available worldwide. Oh, wait. Did we say there's 36 Planeswalkers in War of the Spark? That's not right.
There's a 37 Planeswalker that was our buy a box, that was Tezzeret. So if you ask people how many Planeswalkers were in War of the Spark, they'll say 36, but there were 37.
Just like with Ravnica Allegiance and Guilds of Ravnica before it, a Mythic edition of the War of the Spark was made available via the Hasbro website. Like others before it, the 24-pack Mythic edition sold for $249.99 and featured 8 Masterpiece Planeswalker cards: Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Gideon Blackblade, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Tezzeret the Seeker, Garruk Apex Predator, Nicol Bolas Dragon God, Nahiri the Harbinger, and Sarkhan Unbroken. According to reports, all 12,000 units sold out in roughly 5 minutes, which caused various problems with customers who had it in their carts but couldn't pay, and others who had their orders cancelled altogether. As far as mechanics go, War of the Spark introduced one and brought back another. The returning mechanic is Proliferate, which hadn't been seen in years.
We had been trying to bring Proliferate back. Proliferate originally appeared in Scars of Mirrodin, and it was all about, there was poison and -1/-1 counters, and it was all about this disease theme of spreading the disease of the Phyrexians. And we really had wanted to bring Proliferate back because it was very popular. And we tried, I think in Kaladesh we tried to bring it back. We tried to bring it back in Ravnica as one of the guilds, and it just kept not quite working because it's really, really good with +1/+1 counters. And if the set is too focused on +1/+1 counters, it runs into a problem. But when we got to War of the Spark, we realized, it was less about +1/+1 counters and more about Planeswalkers' loyalty.
Proliferate also worked well with the set's new mechanic, Amass. Amass lets you create a 0/0 token creature with +1/+1 counters upon it that, ideally, would grow over time.
We had a mechanic Amass where, +1/+1 counters, but it only got, your army got one bigger. That wasn't that big a deal.
In terms of cycles, War of the Spark had 11. Perhaps most notable among them are the Gatewatch, split between rare and mythic rarities; Triumphs, which is a contrast to the defeat cards found in Hour of Devastation. They are enhanced if you control Planeswalker of their respective types; Gods at Mythic, 4 of which are the eternalized versions of 4 of Amonkhet's gods, plus the Gruul clan's god, Ilharg the Raiseboar, filling the red slot; Finales, mythic monocolored X sorceries that each get a bonus if at least 10 mana is spent on X. The names of each of these 5 cards reflect the original Hours cards seen in Hour of Devastation, and Bonds at Uncommon, which are sorceries that depict the pairing of 2 of Ravnica's guilds. In terms of single cards worth a mention, War of the Spark has a small variety: Dreadhorde Arcanist, which allows its controller to cast spells with mana cost equal or less than its power from the graveyard, which led the card to becoming quite the combo and synergy engine. The card was banned in Legacy in February 2021. Finale of Devastation, A card that lets you search your deck for any creature card costing equal to or less than the amount of mana you put into the spell. And if you've paid 10 or more mana for X, that creature comes into play with haste and +X/+X until end of turn, which can turn nearly any creature in the deck into a finisher. Karn, the Great Creator. A card that can, when combined with the card Mycosynth Lattice, essentially turn off your opponent's board. The card was most popular in Tron-style decks, where it turned one's sideboard into a wish board of cards it could fetch. The card wound up becoming restricted to 1 copy per deck in Vintage. Narset, Parter of Veils. A card that had become rather popular in Eternal formats due to her card drawing limitations for opponents. Like with Karn, the card also wound up becoming restricted in Vintage. Teferi, Time Raveler, also known as 3-Fairy, due to its low mana cost. It has a passive ability that slows down opponent's spells, along with a +1 ability that speeds up its controllers. Aggressively costed and frustrating for opponents, the card wound up becoming banned in Magic the Gathering Arena's historic format in October of 2020, and banned in the paper Pioneer format in February 2021. In terms of promotional cards, pre-release participants, as they still do today, received a foil-stamped rare or mythic rare, but they also received a foil-stamped Planeswalker card to boot this time around. The Magic Open House promo card was a full art Liliana's Triumph. Draft Weekend's promo was an alternate art Bolas' Citadel. Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, the set's 37th Planeswalker, was the Buy Box promo. An alternate art Karn's Bastion, and a full art Time Wipe were the set's Planeswalker Weekend event promos. The set's Friday Night Magic promos consisted of Augur of Bolas, Paradise Druid, and Dovin's Veto. Now, in the end, how was War of the Spark received? Let's just say that it went over fairly well.
In the history of Magic, if we ever have a set that's consecutive, meaning the set takes place in the same place, there's only one set in the history of Magic where the set took place in the same place, but the later set sold better than the set before it. And the one set to ever do that in the history of Magic is War of the Spark.
So where does War of the Spark rank for you amongst Magic the Gathering sets? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Please remember to click on those like and subscribe buttons. We also have a tip jar on Patreon if you would like to support the channel monetarily. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for watching.